The silence inside Miller's diner was usually comforting, but on that rainy Tuesday, it was the silence of a graveyard. Everyone knew who Alex Rossi was. When the most feared man in Chicago walks into a diner, you don't look up, and you definitely don't speak. But the scariest thing in that room wasn't the gun tucked into his belt. It was his 6-year-old daughter, Sophia. She hadn't uttered a single syllable since the night her mother died. Top psychologists had failed. Bribery had failed. Threats had failed. But they didn't count on a broke waitress named Erin and a $5 bottle of chocolate syrup. What happened next didn't just break the silence. It started a war. This is the story of how a simple drawing exposed a family's darkest secret. Erin Vance was 3 hours into a double shift, and her feet felt like they were encased in concrete. The neon sign of Miller's Diner buzzed with an irritating hum that drilled right into her temples, competing with the relentless drumming of the rain against the plate glass windows. "Order up table 4, Stan the cook and owner barked from the pass-through window. Stan was a good man, but he sweated grease and anxiety. "And Erin. Look alive. We got company." Erin wiped her hands on her apron and followed Stan's gaze. 3 black SUVs had just pulled up to the curb, disregarding the no parking zone. The doors opened in perfect synchronization. 4 men in dark raincoats stepped out first, their eyes scanning the street with predatory precision. They didn't look like customers. They looked like a perimeter defense. Then he stepped out. Alex Rossi. Even Erin, who tried her best to ignore the crime sections of the newspaper, knew the face. He was the head of the Rossi crime family, a man whose name was whispered in fear from the docks to the penthouse suites of downtown Chicago. He was tall with sharp aristocratic features that seemed carved from cold marble, and he wore a suit that cost more than Erin made in a year. But he wasn't alone. Holding his hand was a tiny girl with curly dark hair and a pink raincoat that looked startlingly bright against the sea of black suits surrounding her. The diner went quiet. Forks stopped mid-air. Conversations died instantly. Alex walked to the large booth in the back corner. His men took up positions, 2 at the door, 2 at the counter. They didn't sit. They just watched. Erin took a deep breath. It was her section. "Don't stare," she whispered to herself. She grabbed a notepad and walked over, forcing a smile onto her face. As she approached the table, she realized the atmosphere wasn't just intimidating. It was heavy with exhaustion. Alex looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. The little girl, Sophia, was staring at the formica table surface, her eyes glassy and distant. She looked like a porcelain doll that had been dropped and glued back together, whole but fragile. "Coffee," Alex said, before Erin could speak. His voice was a low rumble, devoid of warmth. "Black. And a menu for the child." "Coming right up," Erin said, her voice trembling slightly. She returned quickly with the coffee and a laminated kids' menu. When she placed it in front of Sophia, the girl didn't blink. She didn't move. She just kept staring at the grey swirls on the table. "Sophia," Alex said, his voice tightening. "Look at the menu. Tell the lady what you want." Silence. "Sophia," he tried again, louder this time. The tension in his jaw rippled. "We discussed this. You need to eat." The little girl remained a statue. Erin stood there, awkward and terrified. She saw the flash of pain in Alex's eyes. Not anger, but a desperate, clawing helplessness. This wasn't just a mob boss. This was a father at the end of his rope. I can bring her the grilled cheese, Erin suggested softly. Kids usually like that. Alex looked at Erin, his eyes narrowing as if assessing a threat. She won't eat it. She hasn't eaten a solid meal in 3 days. He turned back to his daughter, his frustration boiling over. He slammed his hand on the table. The loud thud made the silverware jump. "Speak to me!" Alex shouted. The entire diner flinched. "Damn it, Sophia, just say something. Anything." The girl didn't flinch. She just retreated further inside herself, her small shoulders hunching. Alex sat back, running a hand through his hair, looking defeated. He waved his hand dismissively at Erin. "Just bring her a water, and get out of here." Erin walked away, her heart pounding. She went to the counter, her mind racing. She knew that look on the girl's face. She had seen it in the mirror a long time ago. That wasn't just stubbornness. It was a fortress built out of trauma. "Stay away from them, Erin," Stan hissed as he plated a burger. "Do not engage. Give them the water and fade into the wallpaper." Erin grabbed the glass of water. Then, on an impulse she couldn't explain, she grabbed the squeeze bottle of Hershey's chocolate syrup, usually reserved for the Sundays. "What are you doing?" Stan whispered frantically. "Serving the customer," Erin said. She walked back to the table. Alex was staring out the window, ignoring his daughter. The bodyguards tensed as Erin approached, hands hovering near their jackets. Erin placed the water down. Then, without saying a word, she took a white ceramic plate and placed it in front of Sophia. Alex turned his glare lethal. "I didn't order food." "It's not food," Erin said softly. "It's art." She uncapped the chocolate syrup. Sophia's eyes flickered. For the first time, she looked up. Erin inverted the bottle. On the white plate, she drew a large, clumsy heart with the dark syrup. Then, inside the heart, she drew a simple smiley face. It was childish. It was messy. It was ridiculous in the presence of the Chicago Mafia. Erin slid the plate closer to Sophia. Then she did something strictly against the diner's policy. She crouched down so she was at eye level with the child. "I used to lose my voice, too," Erin whispered, ignoring the terrifying glare of Alex Rossi. "Sometimes the words get stuck in your throat because they're too big to come out. That's okay. You don't have to talk to eat chocolate." She put her finger in a small drop of syrup on the edge of the plate and tasted it. "See safe." Sophia looked at the plate, then at Erin, then at her father. Alex looked ready to throw Erin out a window. "What is this nonsense I told you?" He stopped. Sophia had reached out a small, trembling finger. She dipped it into the chocolate heart. She hesitated, then put her finger in her mouth. A tiny spark of life returned to her eyes. Then Sophia did something that made Alex freeze. She reached for the heavy syrup bottle. Erin didn't pull it away. She let the girl take it. With 2 hands struggling with the weight, Sophia squeezed the bottle over the plate. She didn't draw a heart. She drew jagged lines. Chaotic, dark scribbles over Erin's smiley face. Alex sighed. "She's making a mess. Clean it up, young." "Wait," Erin said, holding up a hand to the Don. Sophia wasn't just scribbling. She was writing. The syrup was thick and the letters were sloppy, but they were legible. H. E. L. P. The air left the booth. Alex stared at the plate, the blood draining from his face. "Help," Alex whispered, his voice cracking. "Sophia, help with what is someone hurting you." Sophia shook her head. She pointed a sticky finger at Erin. Then she opened her mouth. Her voice was rusty, like a door hinge that hadn't been used in years, barely a croak.
She,
Sophia whispered, pointing at Erin. She looks like Mummy. The glass coffee cup in Alex's hand shattered. Hot coffee spilled over his expensive suit, but he didn't even feel it. The bodyguards drew their weapons instantly, aiming them at the terrified customers. "Stand down!" Alex barked at his men. He looked from his daughter to the waitress. Erin backed away, hands up. I'm sorry, I just wanted her to eat." Alex stood up. He towered over Erin. Up close, the intensity of his gaze was suffocating. He studied her face, the curve of her jaw, the shape of her eyes, the way she held herself. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. "What is your name?" he demanded. Erin Vance." Alex grabbed a napkin and wiped the chocolate from Sophia's hands with surprising gentleness, then looked back at Erin. The desperation was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. "Get your coat, Erin Vance," Alex said. "Excuse me. You're done with your shift." He threw a stack of $100 bills onto the table, enough to buy the diner, not just the meal. "My daughter hasn't spoken in 12 months. She speaks to you. That means you are coming with us." "I can't just leave," Erin stammered, looking to Stan for help. Stan was hiding behind the soda fountain. "You aren't asking," Alex said. He signaled to the largest bodyguard, a man with a scar running down his neck. "Marco, escort Miss Vance to the car." "Wait, no," Erin protested, backing up. Marco stepped forward, blocking her path. "Don't make a scene, miss. The boss insists." Erin looked at Sophia. The little girl was watching her with wide, pleading eyes, clutching the chocolate-smeared plate like a lifeline. Erin realized she had two choices: get in the car voluntarily, or get thrown in the trunk. "I need to get my purse," she said, her voice shaking. "We'll buy you a new one," Alex said, buttoning his jacket. He placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder. "Let's go." The interior of the SUV smelled of leather and expensive cologne. Erin sat squeezed between Sophia and the car door. The child lock was on. Erin had checked immediately. The convoy moved through the rainy streets of Chicago, leaving the grey industrial district for the winding roads of the northern suburbs. Alex sat in the front passenger seat, speaking in rapid-fire Italian into a phone. Erin didn't understand the words, but the tone was aggressive. Beside her, Sophia had fallen asleep, her head resting against Erin's arm. It was a strange, intimate weight. "Why?" Erin asked, breaking the silence in the back. Alex hung up the phone and looked at her through the rearview mirror. "Why what?" "Why kidnap a waitress? I drew a picture. That's it. I'm not a speech therapist." "I have hired the best therapists in the world," Alex said, his eyes returning to the road. "Sophia screamed for 3 hours the last time one tried to enter her room. But she touched you. She spoke to you. She thinks you look like my late wife, Isabella." Erin swallowed hard. "And do I?" Alex paused. The silence stretched for a long mile. Isabella had lighter hair, but the eyes... Yes, there is a resemblance, enough for a traumatized child to latch onto. "She said, 'Help,'" Erin whispered. "Why did she write that?" Alex's face hardened. "Because she witnessed her mother being murdered in our living room a year ago. She was hiding behind the sofa. She saw the man who did it. And until she speaks, until she tells me who was in that room, the killer is still walking free." A chill went down Erin's spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. She was sitting next to the only witness to a mafia execution. "I'm sorry," Erin said genuinely, "but I can't help you catch a killer. I serve pancakes." "You are going to be her nanny," Alex stated. You will live in the estate. You will be with her 24/7. You will get her to trust you, and you will get that name out of her. And if I refuse, the car turned onto a long gravel driveway. Iron gates taller than the diner slowly swung open. "Miss Vance," Alex said softly, "I looked into you while we were driving. You have $30,000 in student debt. You are 3 months behind on rent. You have a brother in rehab in Ohio who you pay for. If you stay, I wipe the debt. I pay for the best private care for your brother, and I pay you $10,000 a month." Erin's mouth went dry. He had dismantled her entire life in a 20-minute car ride. It was terrifying, but the offer was a lifeline she hadn't expected. "And if I still say no, then we drop you off at a bus stop and you go back to your life. I don't force women to work for me," Alex said, his voice surprisingly principled. "But look at her." Erin looked down. Sophia was gripping Erin's sleeve in her sleep, her knuckles white. The SUV stopped in front of a mansion that looked more like a fortress. Stone lions guarded the entrance. Cameras swiveled to track the vehicle. "We're here," Marco, the bodyguard, grunted from the driver's seat. Alex opened the back door. He didn't reach for Sophia. He extended a hand to Erin. "Well," he asked, "are you a waitress, or are you the solution?" Erin looked at his hand. It was large, rough, but steady. She thought of her brother rotting away in a state facility because she couldn't afford better. She thought of the eviction notice on her counter. She took his hand. "I need a uniform allowance," she said, trying to sound tougher than she felt. A ghost of a smile touched Alex's lips. "Done." Inside the Rossi estate was a museum of cold luxury, marble floors, oil paintings, and silence. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a mausoleum. "Marco will show you to the guest wing," Alex said. "I have business to attend to. Dinner is at 7. Do not be late." "Wait," Erin said as Alex turned to leave. "What if she doesn't talk again? What if today was a fluke?" Alex stopped. He didn't turn around. "Then we are all dead. Because the people who killed my wife know Sophia saw them. They haven't made a move because they know she's mute. But if word gets out about the diner, if word gets out she spoke." He let the sentence hang in the air. "You just put a target on my back." Erin realized horror dawning on her. "Welcome to the family, Erin," Alex said, and walked into his office, slamming the heavy oak door. Erin stood in the foyer, her heart hammering against her ribs. Marco, the scar-necked lieutenant, stepped closer. Up close, he smelled of tobacco and gun oil. He didn't look at her with the same desperation Alex did. He looked at her with suspicion. "I don't like strangers," Marco grunted. "Boss acts on emotion. I act on logic. You make one wrong move. You make one phone call. You shouldn't, and you won't make it to the bus stop." "I'm just here for the girl," Erin said, holding her ground. "We'll see," Marco spat. "Let's go. The kid is waking up." Erin followed Marco up the grand staircase. As she reached the top landing, she looked down. 2 more men were locking the front door with heavy deadbolts. She was trapped. Marco led her to a room that was larger than her entire apartment. It connected directly to Sophia's room. "Get changed. There are clothes in the closet. The boss assumes you're a size 4. Marco left, closing the door. Erin walked to the window. The grounds were patrolled by men with dogs. She turned to the closet. It was filled with high-end clothing, blouses, slacks, dresses. It was unnerving. She heard a small creak. The connecting door opened slowly. Sophia stood there, still in her pink raincoat. She was holding a sketchbook and a crayon. Erin knelt down. "Hey there, sweetie," It's a big house, huh? Sophia walked over and handed Erin the paper. It was a drawing of the diner. There was the table, the chocolate heart, and outside the window, drawn in heavy black crayon, was a man. He had no face, but on his hand, Sophia had drawn a very specific symbol, a red spider. Erin frowned. "Is this the bad man, Sophia?" Sophia nodded frantically. Erin looked closer at the drawing. The red spider wasn't just a scribble. It looked like a tattoo. Suddenly a memory flashed in Erin's mind, a small detail she had missed in the chaos of the foyer. When Marco had pointed his finger at her, his cuff had ridden up slightly, just on the inside of his wrist. Erin felt the blood freeze in her veins. She had seen a flash of red ink on Marco's wrist. She wasn't just in the house with the victim. She was locked in the house with the killer. Erin stood frozen in the center of the nursery, the crayon drawing trembling in her hand. The red spider. The faceless man. The realization that the monster Sophia feared wasn't under the bed, he was downstairs guarding the front door. She shoved the drawing under the mattress of Sophia's bed, just as the heavy oak door creaked open. It was Marco. He didn't knock. He filled the doorway, his presence sucking the oxygen out of the room. He had removed his suit jacket, rolling up his sleeves to the elbows. But he was wearing a thick gold watch on his left wrist and a leather cuff on his right. The skin, where the tattoo should be, was covered. "Boss wants you at dinner." Marco grunted, his dark eyes scanning the room. He paused, his gaze lingering on the bed, where Erin had just hidden the paper. "What were you two doing?" "Drawing." Erin said, her voice surprisingly steady, despite the jackhammer of her heart. "Just coloring shapes." Marco stepped into the room. He walked slowly toward Sophia, who immediately scrambled backward on the bed, pulling her knees to her chest. The terror in the girl's eyes was absolute. "She doesn't like me," Marco said, his voice feigning hurt, though his eyes were cold. "I tried to get her out of the room when the shooting started, when Isabella died. She bit me." He rubbed his forearm absently. "Ungrateful." "She's scared of everyone," Erin lied, stepping between Marco and the bed. She instinctively adopted a protective stance. "She needs space." Marco looked at Erin, a sneer curling his lip. "You think you're special because you served him coffee? You're a tourist here, Vance. Don't get comfortable." He turned and walked out. 5 minutes. Dining room. Don't make him wait. Erin waited until his footsteps faded before collapsing onto the edge of the bed. She looked at Sophia. "I see him too, honey. I know." Sophia reached out and squeezed Erin's hand. It was a pact. Erin smoothed her dress, a silk navy number Alex had provided, and walked downstairs. The dining room was dimly lit by a crystal chandelier. The table was long enough to seat 20, but only 3 places were set at one end. Alex sat at the head. He had showered and changed into a fresh black shirt, unbuttoned at the collar. He looked less like a warlord and more like a weary king. Marco sat to his right. The empty chair to his left was for Erin. "Sit," Alex said, pouring a glass of dark red wine. Erin sat. The silverware was heavy silver. The plates were bone china. "Did she eat?" Alex asked. "A little," Erin said. "I found some crackers she liked." "Good." Alex took a long drink of wine. "Marco tells me you were asking questions about the security detail." Erin's fork froze halfway to her mouth. She looked at Marco. He was cutting his steak with surgical precision, not looking up. I noticed the cameras," Erin improvised. "I've never been in a house like this." "It's not a house," Marco said, popping a piece of steak into his mouth. "It's a fortress, and it only works if everyone inside is vetted. We still don't know who you really are, Erin." "I told you who I am," Erin said, a flash of anger cutting through her fear. "I'm the girl scraping dried syrup off a table while you play gangster." Alex chuckled darkly. It was a dry, rusty sound. "She has teeth, Marco. I like that." Alex turned to Erin, his expression softening slightly. "Marco is suspicious by trade. He is my underboss. We grew up together in the orphanages of Hell's Kitchen before coming to Chicago. He saved my life in 2008 and again in 2012. He is the only reason I am sitting here." Erin felt sick. Alex trusted Marco implicitly. If she accused him now without hard proof, Alex would likely shoot her himself for treason. "Loyalty is rare," Erin murmured, watching Marco's covered wrists. "It is everything," Alex corrected. "The night Isabella died, it was an inside job. Someone deactivated the perimeter alarms. Someone let the killers in." Alex's hand tightened around his wine glass until Erin thought it might shatter. "The police said it was a robbery gone wrong. But robbers don't use silencers. They don't leave the safe untouched and only take the life of the Don's wife." "We will find them, boss," Marco said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. He reached out and placed a hand on Alex's shoulder. As he did, the leather cuff on Marco's right wrist shifted slightly. Erin held her breath. Just for a microsecond, she saw it. A flash of red ink, a spindly leg. It was there. Erin dropped her fork. It clattered loudly against the china, shattering the tension. "Sorry," she gasped, bending down to pick it up. "Clumsy." She stayed under the table for a second longer than necessary, composing her face. She had the confirmation. Marco was the traitor, and he was sitting 2 feet away from the man he was planning to destroy. The rest of dinner was a blur. Erin excused herself as soon as possible, claiming she needed to check on Sophia. Upstairs, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Erin paced the nursery. She needed a phone. Alex had confiscated hers for security reasons. There was a landline in Alex's study, but the door was always guarded. She needed to get Alex alone, away from Marco. Around 2:00 a.m., a storm broke over Chicago. Thunder shook the foundations of the manor. Sophia woke up screaming. It wasn't a sound. It was a silent, gasping panic. She was thrashing in the sheets, her mouth open in a silent wail. Erin was by her side instantly. "I'm here. Sophia, I'm here." The bedroom door burst open. Alex rushed in, a silver 9mm pistol in his hand. He was shirtless, wearing only pajama pants. His chest was a tapestry of scars. Bullet wounds, knife slashes. Violent history written on skin. "What is it? Is it an attack?" he shouted, sweeping the room with the gun. "It's a nightmare," Erin said, rocking Sophia. "She's having a panic attack." Alex lowered the gun. He looked at his daughter, helpless. He holstered the weapon in the waistband of his pants and sat on the edge of the bed. "She used to love storms," Alex whispered. "Isabella would take her to the porch to watch the lightning." Sophia slowly calmed down, clutching Erin's shirt with one hand and her father's thumb with the other. For a moment in the dim light of the nightlight, they looked like a family. A broken, twisted family, but a family nonetheless. Alex looked at Erin. His eyes were dark pools of grief. "You are good with her." Better than the doctors. She doesn't need a doctor, Erin said softly. She needs to feel safe. And she doesn't. I have 50 men outside. It's not about the men outside, Alex, Erin said, using his first name. She felt bold in the darkness. It's about who she trusts inside. Alex stiffened. What are you saying? Erin's heart hammered. This was it. The moment of truth. Sophia drew a picture today, Erin whispered, of the man who hurt her mum. Alex went still. Show me. I can't right now. It's... Show me. His voice rose, cracking with desperation. I hid it, Erin said. But Alex listened to me. She drew a mark on the man. A specific mark. What mark? A red spider on the wrist. Alex stared at her. His face was unreadable. A red spider. That is the sigil of the Moretti crime family. Our rivals. Yes, Erin said. But she saw it here, inside the house. Alex stood up, his face hardening. That is impossible. No Moretti soldier could get within a mile of this estate. Unless they were already here, Erin breathed. Unless they were invited. Alex's eyes narrowed. Be very careful, Erin. You are implying things that get people killed. I saw it too, Erin blurted out. Tonight, at dinner. Saw what? Marco, she whispered. Under his cuff. I saw red ink. The silence in the room was deafening. The thunder rumbled in the distance, but inside the air was static. Alex looked at her for a long, agonizing minute. Then he shook his head slowly. No. Marco is my brother. I have known him since he was stealing apples in Naples. You saw a shadow. You saw a watch strap. I saw a spider, Alex. Enough, Alex hissed. You are tired. You are imagining things. Marco took a bullet for Isabella 3 years ago. If you speak this poison again, I will throw you out on the street. Do you understand? Erin felt tears prick her eyes, not of sadness, but of frustration. He was blind. His loyalty was his blindfold. I understand, she lied. Alex looked at Sophia, who had fallen back asleep. He brushed a curl from her forehead. Go to sleep, Erin. Tomorrow is a big day. The commission is coming. I need you to keep Sophia out of sight. He left the room, closing the door softly. Erin didn't sleep. She sat in the chair by the window watching the rain. Alex didn't believe her. Marco was safe. Which meant tomorrow, when the heads of the 5 families arrived, Marco would make his move. And Erin was the only one who knew the executioner was already in the building. The next morning, the Rossi estate was a beehive of high-tension activity. Black limousines began arriving at 10:00 a.m., ferrying the dons of the Chicago underworld to Alex's doorstep. This was a sit-down, a formal meeting of the commission. It was neutral ground. No weapons were allowed in the meeting room. Erin was ordered to keep Sophia in the West Wing, far away from the library, where the meeting was taking place. 2 guards were posted at the West Wing doors. We are prisoners today, Erin told Sophia as she braided the girl's hair. Sophia looked at the door, then pulled her sketchbook out. She drew a door. Then she drew a key. She handed it to Erin. I know. Erin sighed. I want to get out too. But Erin couldn't leave. She had to find a way to prove Marco's guilt before the meeting ended. If Marco was working for the Morettis, this meeting was the perfect trap. The Morettis were coming to the house. If Marco disabled the internal security, Alex would be slaughtered in his own library. Erin needed to get into Marco's room. "Sophia," Erin said, kneeling, "I need to play a game. Can you be very quiet, like a ninja?" Sophia nodded solemnly. "I need to go out of the window. I need you to lock the door from the inside and not open it for anyone but me or your dad." "Okay." Sophia's eyes widened, but she nodded. Erin opened the window. The west wing was on the second floor, but an old trellis covered in ivy ran down the side of the stone wall. It was slippery from the rain, but Erin didn't care. She climbed out. The wind whipped her hair. She found her footing on the wooden slats and slowly descended. She didn't go to the ground. She shimmed sideways, moving along a stone ledge toward the east wing, where the staff and lieutenants slept. It was terrifying. One slip and she would fall 20 feet onto concrete. Her fingers bled as she gripped the rough limestone. She reached the window of Marco's room. It was cracked open slightly to let in fresh air. Marco was a chain smoker. Erin slid the window up and tumbled inside. The room smelled of stale smoke and gun oil. It was sparse military style. A bed, a dresser, a safe. The safe was locked. Erin cursed. She rummaged through the dresser. Socks, underwear, a box of ammo. Nothing. She checked under the bed. A duffel bag. She unzipped it. Inside were stacks of cash, too much for an underboss, and a burner phone. Erin grabbed the phone. It was locked, but the screen lit up with a notification. A text message received 10 minutes ago. Send a Viper message. The package is delivered. Noon. Ensure the wine is served. Erin's blood ran cold. The wine. She checked the clock on the wall. It was 11:45 a.m. The meeting was underway. They would be toasting soon. Erin shoved the phone into her bra and climbed back out the window. There was no time to go back to the nursery, no time to be careful. She scrambled along the ledge, but instead of the west wing, she aimed for the library balcony. It was a suicide jump, a 4-foot gap between the ledge and the wrought iron railing of the library terrace. Erin didn't hesitate. She leapt. Her hands caught the cold iron. Her body slammed against the railing, knocking the wind out of her. She hauled herself over, gasping, scraping her shins raw. She was on the balcony of the library. Heavy velvet curtains blocked the view, but she could hear voices. "Peace in our time," a deep voice rumbled. That was Don Moretti. "We have spilled enough blood, Alex." "Agreed," Alex's voice replied. "To the truce." "To the truce!" a chorus of voices shouted. Erin threw the French doors open. The room froze. 5 of the most powerful men in Illinois were sitting around a mahogany table. Alex stood at the head, a crystal goblet of wine halfway to his lips. Marco stood by the sidebar, holding a decanter. "Don't drink it," Erin screamed, rushing into the room. The bodyguards in the corners drew their weapons instantly. "Hold fire!" Alex shouted, his face a mask of shock. "Erin! What the hell are you doing?" Erin stood panting, her dress torn, blood dripping from her hands. She pointed a shaking finger at Marco. "The wine!" she gasped. "It's poisoned!" Silence descended. A heavy, suffocating silence. Don Moretti, a fat man with a wheezing laugh, lowered his glass. "Alex, your domestic staff is very dramatic." Marco stepped forward, his face calm, though his eyes were murdering Erin. "She's hysterical, boss. She's been acting crazy since she got here. I'll remove her." "He got a text," Erin yelled, pulling the burner phone from her dress. "From Viper," it said. "Ensure the wine is served. He works for them." She pointed at Moretti. Don Moretti didn't flinch. He just smiled, a small reptilian smile. Alex looked at the phone in Erin's hand, then at Marco. "Marco," Alex said, his voice low. "Give me the phone." "It's not my phone, boss," Marco said smoothly. "She planted it. She's a spy. Look at her. She climbs in through windows." "Who is she really?" Marco moved toward Erin. "Give it here, you lying witch." "Stay back." Erin scrambled around the table. Alex set his glass down. "Marco, stop." Marco stopped. "Alex, you can't believe this waitress over me. I carried you out of the fire in Palermo." "Then drink it," Alex said. The room went dead silent. Alex pushed his goblet across the mahogany table toward Marco. "If it is good wine, drink a toast to my health." Marco stared at the glass. The color drained from his face. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple. I have an ulcer, boss. You know I can't do red wine." "Drink it," Alex roared, slamming his fist on the table. Marco's hand twitched toward his waistband. "Don't." Alex warned, his own hand hovering near the hidden holster under the table. Marco looked at the window, then at Erin, then at Alex. The mask of the loyal soldier dissolved, revealing a face twisted by years of jealousy. "You never deserved it, Alex," Marco spat. "Isabella should have been mine. The crown should have been mine." Marco lunged not for the gun, but for Erin. He grabbed her by the hair, pulling a knife from his boot and pressing the blade to her throat. "Back off!" Marco screamed. "I'll open her up." The Dons scattered, flipping the table for cover. Alex stood his ground, his gun now drawn and leveled at Marco's head. "Let her go, Marco." "Put the gun down, Alex, or the nanny dies." Marco dragged Erin backward toward the door. The blade bit into her skin. She felt a warm trickle of blood. "You won't shoot," Marco sneered. "You're soft. That's why the Morettis are going to take over. You fell in love with a waitress in 2 days. You're weak." Erin locked eyes with Alex. He was staring down the barrel, his finger whitening on the trigger. But he couldn't take the shot. Marco was using her as a human shield. Erin remembered the self-defense class she took at the community center, the one she laughed through. Stomp the foot, elbow the gut. She slammed her heel down onto Marco's instep with all her strength. Marco grunted in pain, his grip loosening for a fraction of a second. Erin dropped her weight, twisting away from the knife. Bang! The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Erin hit the floor, covering her head. When she looked up, Marco was slumped against the doorframe. A single bullet hole in the center of his forehead. The knife clattered to the floor. Alex stood there, smoke curling from the barrel of his gun. He didn't look triumphant. He looked like a man who had just cut off his own arm. He walked over to Marco's body, kicked the gun away, and then turned to Erin. He dropped to his knees, ignoring the other Dons who were slowly peeking out from behind the overturned furniture. He grabbed Erin's face in his hands. "Are you hit?" he demanded, his voice shaking. I don't think so," Erin stammered. "Just a scratch." Alex pulled her into a hug so tight it cracked her ribs. He buried his face in her neck. For a moment, the Mafia boss was gone. There was only a man who had almost lost everything again. "You were right," he whispered into her hair. "Forgive me. You were right." Erin clung to him, the adrenaline finally crashing. "Alex." Don Moretti's voice broke the moment. The rival Don stood up, brushing dust off his suit. He looked at Marco's body, then at the poisoned wine. "It seems," Moretti said, "that your house cleaning is complete, but this complicates the truce." Alex stood up, pulling Erin with him. He kept his arm around her waist, a gesture of possession and protection. "There is no truce," Alex said coldly. Marco didn't act alone. He had a handler. Alex picked up the burner phone Erin had dropped. He hit redial on the last received message. A phone began to ring. It rang from the pocket of Don Moretti's suit jacket. The room froze again. Moretti smiled, but his eyes darted to the door. Awkward. "Kill them all," Alex said to his guards. "Kill them all." Alex's command was not a shout. It was a verdict. The library erupted into a war zone. Alex flipped the heavy mahogany table onto its side, grabbing Erin by the waist and hauling her behind the makeshift barricade just as the air filled with the deafening roar of automatic gunfire. Splinters of wood and shards of crystal from the chandelier rained down like deadly confetti. Don Moretti, spry for a man of his size, had dived behind a leather sofa. His own bodyguards, who had evidently smuggled ceramic pistols past the metal detectors, were returning fire against Alex's men. "Stay down!" Alex roared over the noise, pressing Erin into the Persian rug. He popped up, firing 2 controlled shots. 2 of Moretti's men dropped. "Sophia!" Erin screamed, her voice barely audible over the gunfire. "She's in the West Wing. We have to get to her." "My men are securing the hall," Alex shouted back, reloading with practiced ease. "We have to clear the room first." But the room wasn't clearing, it was filling. Moretti's backup men, who must have been waiting in the woods, shattered the French doors, rappelling in from the terrace where Erin had just entered. They were swarming the library. "We're overrun." Alex realized, his face grim. He looked at the heavy oak door leading to the hallway. It was being peppered with bullets from the other side. They were trapped. Alex looked at Erin. There was no fear in his eyes, only a terrifying resolve. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver key. "There is a hidden panel behind the bookcase," he said, pressing the key into her hand. "It leads to the servants' tunnels. It comes out near the garage. Go. Get Sophia. Take the black sedan. Drive until you hit the state line." "What? No." Erin grabbed his arm. "I'm not leaving you here. You have to," Alex said, his voice breaking. "If they take me, they kill me. If they take you, or Sophia—" He didn't finish the sentence. He couldn't. "I'm not leaving," Erin said, her eyes blazing. "We go together, or we die together. That's the deal." Alex stared at her for a split second, stunned by her ferocity. Then he nodded. "Together." He grabbed a grenade from a fallen guard's tactical vest flashbang. "Cover your eyes." He pulled the pin and hurled it over the table toward the terrace. Boom! A blinding white light seared the room, followed by a concussive blast that shattered every remaining window. Screams of disorientation filled the air. "Move!" Alex grabbed Erin's hand. They didn't go for the bookcase. They sprinted into the chaos through the smoke, heading for the main door. Alex fired blindly, but accurately clearing a path. They burst into the hallway. It was empty save for the bodies of 2 of Alex's guards. The betrayal ran deep. Moretti had brought an army. They ran toward the West Wing. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever, a nightmare of expensive wallpaper and looming shadows. When they reached the nursery door, Erin's heart stopped. The door was open. The lock had been shot off. "Sophia!" Erin screamed, rushing inside. The room was empty. The bed was overturned. The window was open, rain lashing the curtains. On the floor near the bed lay Sophia's sketchbook. It was trampled, a boot print muddying the drawing of the diner. Erin fell to her knees, a guttural sound of despair escaping her throat. They took her. Oh God, Alex, they took her. Alex stood in the doorway, his face turning to stone. The grief was there, but he shoved it down, locking it away in a box deep inside his mind. He couldn't afford grief. He needed rage. He walked over to the window and looked out. Tire tracks tore up the muddy lawn below. A black van was speeding toward the main gates, flanked by 2 SUVs. They didn't come to kill me. Alex whispered, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. The meeting, the poison, it was all a distraction. They came for the leverage. He turned to Erin. Get up. They have her. Get up. Alex hauled her to her feet. Moretti took her because he knows he can't kill me in a straight fight. He wants to trade my territory for my daughter. He dragged Erin out of the room down the back stairs toward the garage. We are going to get her back, Alex vowed, his voice vibrating with a lethal promise. And then I am going to burn Moretti's world to ash. In the garage, Alex bypassed the Ferraris and the armored limos. He went straight to a dusty, nondescript Ford sedan in the corner. Get in, he ordered. As Erin buckled up, Alex opened the glove box and pulled out a fresh clip for his gun and a heavy, jagged hunting knife. Where are we going? Erin asked, wiping tears from her face. Moretti has a warehouse in the meat-packing district, Alex said, revving the engine. It's where he takes people he wants to disappear. If he has Sophia, she's there. Alex hit the garage door opener. As the door rose, revealing the rain-slicked driveway, he looked at Erin. You don't have to come. This is going to be ugly. Erin looked at the empty back seat where Sophia should have been. She thought of the little girl who communicated with chocolate syrup because the world was too loud. Drive, Erin said. The warehouse looked abandoned, a rusting hulk of corrugated metal against the grey Chicago sky. But Erin could see the heat signatures of parked cars behind the loading dock. Alex parked the Ford 3 blocks away. He killed the engine. The silence in the car was heavy. There are at least 20 men in there, Alex said, checking his weapon. I can't take them all head-on. You don't have to, Erin said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the burner phone, the one she had taken from Marco, the one Moretti had called. Moretti thinks Marco is dead. Erin said, her mind racing. But does he know who killed him? It was chaos in there. Alex looked at her, understanding dawning in his eyes. You want to bluff? Text him, Erin said, from Marco's phone. Tell him I'm dead. Tell him you, Alex, are dead. Tell him Marco has the keys to the kingdom and is bringing them to the warehouse. Alex took the phone. His fingers flew across the keypad. Message to Viper Rossi is down. The girl is dealt with. I'm coming in with the files. Clear the perimeter. I don't want to be seen. They waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The phone buzzed. Reply. Good work. Come to the South Bay, alone. Alex looked at Erin with a mixture of awe and fear. You are dangerous, Erin Vance. I'm a waitress, she said, her voice trembling. I know how to handle bad customers. They moved through the rain, sticking to the shadows. When they reached the South Bay, Alex hid behind a stack of shipping crates. Stay here, he whispered. If things go wrong, run. No, Erin whispered back. I'm the distraction. Before Alex could stop her, Erin stepped out into the open under the flickering floodlight of the loading bay door. She held Marco's phone high in the air. Marco couldn't make it, she shouted into the cavernous warehouse. He sent me. The bay door rumbled open. 3 men stepped out, guns raised. Behind them, in the center of the warehouse, sat Moretti on a folding chair. And at his feet, tied to a chair, was Sophia. She was crying silently, her face pale. "Well, well," Moretti called out, his voice echoing. "The nanny! You have 9 lives, girl." "I have the codes to Alex's offshore accounts." Erin lied, her voice projecting clearly. "Marco gave them to me. He said if I gave them to you, you'd let me and the girl go." Moretti laughed. "Bring her in." The guards grabbed Erin and dragged her inside, throwing her to the floor next to Sophia. Erin looked at Sophia. "It's okay," she whispered. "Daddy's here." Moretti stood up, walking over to Erin. He kicked Marco's phone out of her hand. "You think I'm stupid? Marco never shared money. He was a greedy pig." He pulled a gun and pointed it at Erin's head. "Where is Alex?" "Right behind you," a voice growled from the shadows of the rafters. Moretti spun around. Alex dropped from the crane gantry above, landing on one of the guards with a sickening crunch of bone. He rolled, came up shooting. 2 guards dropped before they could raise their rifles. The warehouse exploded into chaos again. But this time, Alex had the element of surprise. He moved like a ghost, weaving between crates, taking out Moretti's men one by one. Moretti grabbed Sophia by the back of her shirt, hauling her chair upright, using her as a shield again. He backed toward the office. "Stop or I end her!" Moretti screamed. Alex froze in the open. He was 10 feet away. His gun was empty. Moretti grinned, leveling his pistol at Sophia's head. "Say goodbye to your legacy, Alex." Erin, still on the floor, saw a loose pipe near her hand. She couldn't reach Moretti, but she could reach the fuse box on the wall. She grabbed the pipe and swung it with all her might, smashing the industrial fuse box. Sparks showered down. The warehouse plunged into total darkness. "Daddy!" The scream pierced the dark. It wasn't Erin. It was Sophia. It was the first word she had spoken in a year. It was loud, clear, and terrified. Guided by his daughter's voice, Alex moved. He didn't need light. He knew where the monster was. There was a scuffle, a grunt of effort, and the wet sound of a knife meeting flesh. Then silence. "Alex," Erin whispered into the dark. A lighter flicked on. The small flame illuminated Alex's face. He was bloodied, bruised but alive. On the ground behind him, Don Moretti lay still. His reign of terror ended. Alex cut the ropes binding Sophia. The little girl didn't shrink away this time. She threw herself into her father's arms, sobbing. "I heard you." Alex wept, burying his face in her hair. "I heard you, baby." Sophia pulled back, her small hands cupping his bruised face. Then she looked at Erin. "Erin," Sophia said, her voice raspy but steady. "Chocolate." Alex let out a laugh that sounded half like a sob. He reached out an arm and pulled Erin into the huddle. They sat there on the dirty concrete floor of the warehouse, the Mafia Don, the silent girl, and the waitress bound together by blood and chocolate. The bell above the door of Sophia's kitchen chimed softly. It wasn't a diner anymore. The old miller's place had been gutted and reborn. The neon lights were gone, replaced by warm pendant lighting. The greasy smell was replaced by the aroma of authentic Italian espresso and fresh pastries. Erin wiped the counter, adjusting the fresh flowers in the vase. She wore a simple white dress, her hair loose. She looked younger, lighter. "Table 3 needs a refill on the biscotti," a deep voice said from the kitchen. Alex walked out. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing an apron over a crisp button-down shirt, flour dusting his forearms. He had traded the gun for a rolling pin, at least during daylight hours. The Chicago underworld knew that Alex Rossi had retired. They also knew that retired didn't mean weak. The new Don, a man hand-picked by Alex, knew exactly whose ring to kiss if problems arose. But for now, Alex was just a man who owned a bakery. "I'm on it." Erin smiled, taking the tray from him. "How is the little chef doing? She's demanding a raise." Alex grinned. Erin looked over at the corner booth, the same booth where she had drawn the heart 6 months ago. Sophia was sitting there, but she wasn't alone. She was surrounded by 3 other kids from her school laughing. She was holding court, telling a story, her hands moving animatedly. She wasn't just talking, she was thriving. Erin walked over to drop off the biscotti. Sophia looked up, her eyes bright. "Mum," Sophia chirped, "I'm telling them about the time you hit the bad man with the pipe." The other kids' parents looked a little alarmed. Erin blushed. "It was a metaphor, sweetie. Eat your cookie." She walked back to the counter where Alex was watching them, a look of pure contentment on his face. "She called you Mum again," Alex noted softly. "She's been doing that all week," Erin said, leaning against him. Alex wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her close. The nightmares still came sometimes. They still checked the locks 3 times a night. But the silence was gone. "I have something for you," Alex said. He reached under the counter and pulled out a white ceramic plate. On it, drawn in perfect dark chocolate syrup, was a question mark. Erin looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What is this?" Alex picked up the syrup bottle. His hands, once instruments of violence, were steady and gentle. Next to the question mark, he drew a ring. "Erin Vance." Alex said, his voice dropping to that rumble that still gave her shivers. "You saved my daughter. You saved my life. You saved my soul. I don't want to run a bakery without you. I don't want to do anything without you." He wiped his hand on his apron and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Will you marry us?" he asked. "Me and Sophia." Erin looked at the ring, a vintage diamond that looked like it had a history, but a clean one. Then she looked at the chocolate drawing. She took the syrup bottle from his hand. Alex held his breath. Erin squeezed the bottle. She didn't draw a heart this time. She wrote one word in big, bold, sweet letters across the plate. Y-E-S. Alex didn't care about the customers. He didn't care about the flower on his apron. He kissed her a deep, soul-searing kiss that tasted of coffee and second chances. From the corner booth, Sophia clapped, and soon the whole restaurant joined in. The mafia boss's daughter had found her voice, but the waitress had found her home. And it turned out, the sweetest things in life aren't found on a menu. They're made with a little bit of courage, a lot of love, and a squeeze of chocolate syrup. And that, my friends, is how a simple act of kindness in a diner brought down a crime empire and healed a broken family. It goes to show that sometimes the loudest thing you can do is listen to the silence. If you enjoyed this story of danger, romance, and redemption, please destroy that like button. Just like Erin destroyed the fuse box. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. We release new dramatic tales every week. What would you have done if you were in Erin's shoes? Would you have gotten in the car? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and watch out for the quiet ones.